Mo'enu v'Rabbeinu.
Amos, shalom. It's been a long time.
It has been a long time. But we've been busy. We've been doing stuff.
Yep, lots of stuff.
Parodies and videos and...
Yeah. We have over 1,100 views.
Over
1,100 views in that video.
Yeah, we can link it at the bottom.
Shlomit's teacher, my daughter's teacher, told me yesterday at a sporting event that she's seen that video multiple times and she cracks up each time. And she showed her kids, showed her friends. It's amazing.
That's crazy.
It's crazy, yeah.
And we made it to Ynet as well with that video.
We made it to Ynet, and then it cracked a lot of people up. We brought a lot of joy. We brought a lot of simcha to the world. That was the goal. That was the point.
Yeah.
And so we did that successfully. And looking forward to the next one, almost. And Pesach came and went. It was very effortful. And Baruch Hashem, it went very smoothly here. And speaking about Beit HaMikdash, speaking about Pesach, Pesach starts the Shalosh Regalim. We are at the beginning of the 3 festivals of the foot, as they're called, Regalim. That's what it is. When people would ascend and walk all the way from Iraq, from Babylon back in the day, to Jerusalem.
Yeah.
From all over, people come to Jerusalem. Before the pandemic hit, around Pesach and Sukkot time specifically, are times when Jerusalem is flooded with tourists.
Yeah.
Religious tourism, meaning not just Israel tourism or birthright groups or whatnot. I'm talking about people who come for the Chagim.
For the sake of this.
And in Israel, people go to Yerushalayim for Chol HaMoed, for Birkat Kohanim, the blessing of the priests, for a lot of the events. And it's flooded with people, which gives us a little bit of a taste of how Jerusalem would be like if there was a temple, which is our subject today.
So, first of all, credit where credit is due. This is Shoshana's idea, so my sister's idea.
Ah, very good.
So
thank you, Shoshana.
Otherwise, I won't hear the end of it if I don't give her the credit for it. And so, yeah, it's an interesting question because every year in the end of the Haggadah we say L'Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim. What happens? Well, let's start with this. What happens if we're in Jerusalem? Do we still say L'Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim?
Sure, because what's the last word?
Habnuya.
That's right. Habnuya means
the built, or Yerushalayim should be built, which specifically refers to the temple.
Correct.
So,
the city itself is built.
Yeah, the city is there. It's been there for years.
The city now is bigger than it's ever been. I mean, just to give you a perspective, the city of Jerusalem, the municipality of Jerusalem, has about 900,000 people. That's double the population of the greater Wellington area.
Yeah.
So it's a big city. By objective standards, it's not Mexico City big or Los Angeles.
No, but it's big.
But it's very, very big. For the second biggest city in Israel after Tel Aviv. Well, Tel Aviv area is the biggest city.
So the topic stems from this question: if Jerusalem was to be built, which is to say the temple was to be built tomorrow, do we still say L'Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim Habnuya at the end of the Haggadah?
No, because you would be in the temple, and you would have, not only would you be in the temple, but people would have to go there at least once a year. There's a mitzvah of Hakel, where everybody's supposed to come to the temple. There's a king, or a queen, or a monarch, essentially, or the leader of the time. And everyone would have to come there, and you would come to the Beit HaMikdash. There was an interesting question when the second temple was built. They still keep Tisha B'Av for the destruction of the first temple. It came up.
That's a very interesting question.
And then Zechariah, I'm going to talk about that in my Tanakh class. I won't address that here. But the question itself is very, very interesting. So I guess the question would be, in the third temple, would you still lament the first and second temple that were destroyed? Because they were destroyed. It's an interesting question. Meaning, is it a temple... For our purposes, does the temple replace the first and second temple? Or is it an alternative to the first and second temple, but we're always going to have to remember those temples? Interesting question.
Here's a question that kind of just popped into my head.
Yeah.
Just now.
Mhm.
Do we know the dates when the first and second temple were inaugurated?
Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
The first temple, there's a whole chapter. It's Kings 1, chapter
Yeah,
8.
Melachim Aleph.
Yeah, chapter 8. Which
But
Melech Shlomo inaugurates the first temple.
Yeah.
And the temple, to be fair, was the permanent home of the tabernacle that was inaugurated on the 1st of Nisan,
So
the second year of Israel's
why
departure from
then
Egypt.
do we not celebrate those days?
Because they were destroyed. We do celebrate Hanukkah. You mean as opposed to Hanukkah?
No,
That's a different podcast.
not rededicated, but like like inaugurated for the first time. Like
Well,
this is the temple.
that is a Hanukkah.
We're
That's what
doing.
an inauguration is.
Yeah.
The first of you should know that in many shuls around the world, from the 1st of Nisan to the 12th of Nisan, which is the initial inauguration of the Mishkan, the tabernacle,
Yeah.
you read the sacrifice of each Nasi on that day. And that's one of the reasons you don't say Tachanun for the month of Nisan, because those 12 days you don't say Tachanun. Pesach you don't say Tachanun.
Yeah.
And therefore the duration of Nisan you also don't say Tachanun.
Yeah. Because what's another week? That's
Basically.
That's
But
yeah.
so there is in halacha we do acknowledge the inauguration.
Yeah.
That's the answer to your question.
Yeah. But it's
It's
not
acknowledged.
a chag.
Correct.
As such.
Hanukkah was the chag because it was a change of sovereignty.
Yes. Yeah. That's different.
That's different.
You had a shiur about that
That's right.
yesterday,
That was my class last night.
which was a good class. I enjoyed it.
But let's go back to Pesach. What would change? So tefillah today, the way we have our siddur structured today, is effectively u'neshalma farim sfatenu, which means instead of our cows, we'll use our lips.
Mm.
And that means that our tefillah are instead of the sacrifices. When were the main sacrifices? There's a lot of different sacrifices.
Yeah.
Pesach, we would have all gone there, and everyone would have taken their sheep from New Zealand and or Israel or wherever,
Yeah.
and sacrificed and ate it as a family.
Yes.
That is the Korban Pesach.
Yeah.
The Afikoman is matzah, which hopefully then would not be the cardboard machine stuff, but it's soft and matzah. That's a different question. Maror and lamb. I mean, I'd eat that in the middle of any day. It sounds really good. That's what you'd eat. That is what you'd eat, and that would be Pesach. And you do that in and around Jerusalem. Jerusalem would be flooded with Jews from all over the world. Of course, you can do Pesach anywhere, but that is the Korban Pesach you have to do in the Beit HaMikdash in and around Jerusalem, and there'll be a whole setup for it. You book places in advance and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But think of the regular sacrifices. There's a sacrifice in the first part of the morning. Sacrifice at the end of the day, Ben Arabayim, which is essentially at sunset, right before sunset. And then the innards, right, the inner organs were burned throughout the night, so that they wouldn't go to waste. And that's Mariv. That's Shachrit, Mincha, Mariv. And those tefillot, the times of them are the same times of the sacrifices.
Yeah.
That's how we remember them. Now the tefillot will stay throughout time, duration of time, even when the temple is reinstated. Please God, rebuilt.
Yeah.
But we will have korbanot as well, and that will be a change. Forget what you think about animal rights or not, but we're just talking about what would change. There would be korbanot. Interesting question would be, would there be korban? I gave a whole shiur about that a few weeks ago on my Shabbat morning class. Would there be korbanot today? Would there be sacrifice today, or only vegetarian sacrifices? It's a really interesting question in the third temple.
Yeah.
Because there is a vision that there won't be sacrifices. That's a different topic, but it's a debate. For the most part, it seems like we will, because that's what we say in our tefillah.
Yeah.
And we ask to have the korbanot back. Think about what we say in
But
Musaf.
we also say in our tefillah, Ubnei Yerushalayim, Kodesh b'Ma'avin b'Yemenu.
Right. So what does that mean?
Well, we're praying for the rebuilding of the temple.
But you don't say the temple, you say Yerushalayim. You see, there's two things here. One is Yerushalayim, one's the temple. I think people get confused. And the question is, every time you say Yerushalayim, does that mean the temple? or the city. Think of it
Okay.
historically for a moment. What is Jerusalem, by the way, historically? Like, what area in Jerusalem is Jerusalem?
The old city.
The old city and the city of David.
Yeah.
Which today is outside the walls.
Which is out. Yeah.
That is the original city, though, of Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
The original city of Jerusalem is that one hill that today is called the city of David, which 50 families live there. It's by East Jerusalem, by Silwan.
Yeah.
And it's a huge tourist site. It has over 1 million visitors a year. So that is Jerusalem. That's why it's a big tourist site, because they're visiting ancient biblical Jerusalem, like King David's Jerusalem, and Jebusites and Canaanites and the whole bit. It expanded. I won't get into the whole history of it. I worked at the Tower of David Museum, so I'm very passionate about Jerusalem, obviously.
I've heard that
Yes.
whole tour many times.
Many times now. That's right. You're practically an expert.
I can give it the tour.
Almost.
Not really.
And when we get to think about Jerusalem today, 900,000 people as we started. It's a lot of people. The city itself has been built up. It doesn't necessarily mean that... And Jerusalem is under Israel sovereignty.
Yeah.
The Temple Mount specifically is a contested area still.
Yeah.
So that is... So you can say one day it'll go back to Israel sovereignty. It won't be a contested area. And hopefully peacefully. We're not looking for wars.
Mm-hmm.
Everything should go peacefully. And we should be able to rebuild our temple if we want to do that. And the real question is, do people want to do that? But how would our podcast today is talking about how the world would change. And so there would be korbanot, there would be sacrifices. The world would have to deal with that. Sacrifices is as old as time. It's the oldest practice. And think about even people get caught up about the number of animals killed per day and be so bloody, and how can that be? I mean, anybody who's gone to a slaughterhouse anywhere in the world knows that the number of animals killed per day in the Beit HaMikdash is actually minuscule. Is like an abattoir could not run on that. They couldn't run on that.
No.
Maybe Korban Pesach. Korban Pesach would be like a good day for an abattoir. That would be like, that's really intense day for an abattoir. But I've been in abattoirs and easily, and not a large one, just in the morning, in 4 hours, you have 250 to 500 animals slaughtered. Easy. And that's just a day's work.
But that's not really our place to judge that.
No, I'm just saying. I'm just giving people a perspective about, like, it's a perspective.
People will judge it regardless.
That's true, but I'm just saying, as a perspective, but it will be a contested thing. I don't think it'll go so smoothly, and some people will contest it till the end of time. Some people will be completely for it, and some people will say, I'll do it, but I hope to transition to vegetarian korbanot. But it'll be a subject now. It'll be a subject in the world versus a theoretical discussion.
Yeah,
and that's going to be a change.
So the second point that we have down is the world will recognize Israel as the Jewish homeland. Specifically, Yerushalayim is Israel's eternal capital.
So why would a temple change that? I mean, we wrote that down in our notes here.
Yeah.
Why do you think that would... Meaning, the world doesn't recognize Israel as a Jewish homeland unanimously.
No.
It's contested. That's why there's the BDS movement and others. We have to fight for the fact that Israel is a Jewish homeland. De facto, it's the state of Israel. The state of Israel is run by the Jewish people and allows other people to live there as well. We won't get into politics, but the truth is... But that's what it is. I mean, factually... It is
politics, yeah.
It is, but I'm saying factually, it is the state of Israel.
Yes, it is.
I'm not the West Bank or not the West Bank. You leave that aside. Jerusalem is part of the state of Israel. The municipality of Jerusalem is run under the state of Israel.
Correct.
End of story.
Yeah.
That's what it is. You have Jews, Arabs, Christians, and people from other nations living in Jerusalem today.
Yeah.
It's very eclectic that way.
All over Israel.
All over Israel.
Jews,
Jerusalem, you really see it. In Jerusalem, in Tel Aviv, you also see it in a different way. But in Jerusalem, you see the different faiths.
Yeah.
Very prominent, and every faith can run independently and run freely. For the most part, which is very special. Only city in the world I know that has 3 major centers for Christianity, Muslim,
3 religions,
and Judaism, different streams of Judaism, Armenian Christianity, and others.
Yeah. I don't know what that is, but it sounds annoying, and if you might be able to hear it.
It sounds like a bird that got stuck in a fence somewhere. But the question is, okay, let's say all of that is what we have now at the present. With all that, there are people that say whatever they say about Israel, and it's not unanimous that people recognize Israel as the Jewish homeland or that it should be.
So how does the temple change that?
How would the temple change it? That's the question. Would the temple change that? I don't know. It's a real question.
I don't think it will at first.
Mm.
I think it will over time,
Right.
but I don't think it will at first. Like, for example, people recognizing Israel well, Jerusalem as Israel's capital itself
Yeah, sure.
is still a big problem in the world.
Yeah.
Now, I don't understand the issue, because every other country in the world can choose where its capital is.
Right.
But for some reason, if Israel chooses where its capital is, it's a problem.
Right. That's why when the U.S. moved the embassy to Jerusalem, we were expecting such a big backlash. They didn't get a big backlash.
No.
At all.
No, because it has been, well, self-recognized as the capital for
Yeah.
73 years.
Jerusalem is a capital city. The Knesset operates out of
73 years
not
next
out of,
week.
Yeah, not out of Tel Aviv. Right? The Knesset has always operated out of Jerusalem.
Yeah. Yeah.
From the beginning of the Knesset.
Mm.
Not always in that building, but always in Jerusalem.
Correct.
Yeah. The Beit HaMikdash can only be in Jerusalem. The temple can only be in Jerusalem. It is the spiritual center of the world.
Mm.
And I guess the question is, in point number 2, I reckon that eventually it will change people's opinion to have world recognition of a Jewish homeland and not just be perceived as a religious thing.
Can you put a timeline on that?
No.
How quickly?
How quickly?
Temple's built tomorrow. Does it take a week, a month, a year, 50 years,
Yeah.
200 years?
Yeah, 50 years is probably closer. I mean, it'll take a generation.
Mm.
It'll take a generation to change people's thoughts. Think about, let's think of a historical comparative here, a comp that we have in our lifetime. How long did it take, up until 1967, the old city was in Jordanian hands.
Yeah.
So it's only been part of Israel for 54 years.
Mm.
Today, nobody would say Jerusalem is in Jordanian hands, because that's just factually incorrect.
No.
Even the old city.
Yeah.
Even East Jerusalem. People say East Jerusalem contested,
Mm.
but it's not Jordanian. It's either Israeli or independent or Palestinian.
Yeah.
So those are the options. Again, whatever option a person chooses in their mind, fine. But the point is that today, in 50 years, that's either Israel or the small Palestinian nation that's living within the confines of Israel.
Yeah.
Right, and it's just a matter of politics, if they have sovereignty, if it's officially part of Israel. Then you get into the borders. But nobody says, is it Israel or is it Jordan? And revisionist history that 1967 never happened.
Yeah.
Nobody says that. If they do, they're just lying. You just denying history, and they're just fools. But so in 50 years, that narrative is Jerusalem is part of Israel. It's the capital of Israel. Mm. Some people will be adamant on their opinions because you won't change everybody's mind.
No.
But the general consensus is that if you want to go to the spiritual city in Israel, you go to Jerusalem.
Yes. Yeah.
You go to Jerusalem.
And if you haven't been to Jerusalem,
you have to.
Everyone has to go.
You have to go.
You feel it in your bones.
You do. You do. It's a special place. I can't really describe it in words. Yeah, you just have to be there. You don't even go there on Zoom. Just go whenever you can book a ticket.
Words do not describe how
you go to
how
the
you
Kotel,
feel in Jerusalem.
You go to the Kotel, even though the Kotel is only the outside wall, used to be the marketplace, but you feel holiness, and that's really what I guess point number 3.
Oh, let's go on a tangent.
Let's go on a tangent. But I was going to say you feel God.
Does the Kotel become the marketplace again?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Or does it retain its...
Well, the Davidson part would become the marketplace. It would become an archaeological park.
Yeah.
Somebody would buy it off of them. They get all their money back.
Yeah,
millions of dollars in investments.
But like it would... Does it retain its sort of importance as the place closest to the Kodesh Kodeshim in that sense?
No, the Kotel is simply...
I mean, like right now, it's the place.
Okay,
right?
let's just tell everybody what the Kotel is.
Yeah.
What's the Kotel?
It's the Wailing Wall.
No, the Wailing Wall is a new name given to it.
Yeah, but that's what people will know it as.
No, they also know it as the Western Wall.
That too.
Why is the Western Wall
Depends
important?
on who's listening.
Fair enough. The Western, but it's called the Western Wall. Kotel Ma'aravi.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay. The Western Wall of what?
Temple of the city.
Of the Temple Mount.
Yeah.
Built by King. You know this tour by heart. King Herod.
King Herod. Second temple.
Very good.
Yeah.
All it is, and I'm going to devalue it and then build the value back up. Okay. So all it is
you're ruining my
King
childhood
Herod,
right here. You're ruining my childhood right here.
Oh no! I'm going to ruin it and then I'm going to build it back up.
Okay.
Don't worry. The Kotel is always a special place and always will be a special place.
Okay.
That's never going to change.
Okay.
I'm not trying to devalue it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But all it is he took King Herod took the Temple Mount, which was just a mountain, a very small hill, really. It's called a mount, but it's just a hill. And he elevated it with arches to the north and to the south. Where now to the south, all the way to the south, that's where Al-Aqsa Mosque was built. But perpendicular to it was the original building of his silo that he had. Not silo, his basilica. Excuse me, basilica that he had.
Yeah.
That he could go up there and observe, because it wasn't officially on Temple Mount, which was his agenda. That he can go up because he wasn't halachically Jewish, and that's why he built the steps, which is Robinson's Arch, discovered by Robinson later. And then he built 4 walls around the Temple Mount. He increased the Temple Mount to the size where it's the size of about a dozen or possibly 20 soccer pitches. It's a huge area. It's a huge area, the Temple Mount. It's not so small.
No.
And then the western part of the wall were before people entered and ascended up to the Temple Mount, which is why the marketplace was there. Now, what happened?
Because it's the best spot.
It's the best spot. Just strategically.
Yeah.
Like, logistically, it's the best spot.
Yeah.
Correct. And even in Davidson Archaeological Park, you'll see they have dug up archaeological evidence of some of the booths that sell. Like today, it would be all online.
Yeah.
You buy it all. You buy it all online.
And then you go to the temple.
You go to temple.co.il.
Temple.
Temple. They spell it P-E-L probably.
Yeah.
Misspell it.
Temple.
Temple.
Exactly how it sounds.
Temple. You come to temple, we give you goat, and you
buy your kova temple.
And give it to Kohen, he does shchita, and you no chatayim. Okay, kapara alecha. So you go to temple. But why is the Kotel Ma'aravi so significant?
Yeah.
Today it's actually the closest place we can get to Kodesh Kodeshim outside of doing the walk on the Temple Mount, which I've done once, which is very special as well. But you have to do that. The walk watches you, and you can't do that independently. You want to do it independently, you have to go to the tunnel tours, which I've also done. I know a friend who operates that as well. And there's a place to go, Mul Kodesh Kodeshim, right where the Kodesh Kodeshim, the Holy of Holies, would have stood, which is facing west. That's why the west is considered the most important spot.
Part.
That's why it says the Shekhinah, Hashem's presence, is to the west, because within the Kodesh Kodeshim is the west. But it's also that's the closest we could have gotten to the reason it's important. That's the closest you could have gotten to the Temple Mount after the destruction of the temple.
Mm.
It's never been rebuilt.
Yes. Yeah.
Even the Golden Dome, that's built there now over the Even HaShtiyah in year 691, and then later renovated by the Turks with 80 tons of gold on top of it in order to create it. That was built but 621 years after the temple was destroyed.
Yeah.
And what was there for those 621 years? Nothing. It was completely desolate by design, by the Romans and the Byzantines.
Mm-hmm.
Until the early Muslims conquered it in the early 7th century. In 691, Abu al-Malik built the Dome of the Rock.
Yeah.
Golden Dome, as we see it today, and it's been renovated because of the earthquake in the 13th century.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. So the Kotel is incredibly important. There is a promise that the Kotel, despite all the Beit HaMikdash and everything, despite all the destruction, the Western Wall will never fall. And there are Herodian stones.
Yeah.
From that time.
Yeah.
In the Kotel, you can see the large stones on the bottom are Herodian, the ones with the kind of frame around them.
Yeah.
Those are Herodian stones. Oh, yeah, I won't get into my archaeological brain, because that'll confuse everybody. But you can see the original stones from the Second Temple there. Why? Because that's what was built, and it's built up over time. You see, as the Kotel rises up, you see the stones get thinner and thinner and thinner and different.
Yeah.
If you have a good eye for it, it's not so hard to see if you're really looking for it. And you can see the top one is 20th century, and the bottom one is literally a 2,000-year gap between the bottom stone and the top stone. It's really cool.
Mm. Yeah, I did always wonder why it was like thick at the bottom and so thin.
Because different stones in different eras.
Yeah.
And different stone cutters. People got lazier over time.
Every year they add an extra stone, you'd think.
Why you need the stone bigger? Do smaller, laat.
Yeah.
Yeah, slowly.
The
next part, which we're going to have to continue next time, which is how would it change? Well, I mean, it's a question. I guess we'll leave it as a question. Would the world recognize Israel if Israel built its temple, operated it, and gotten behind it? I guess the interesting part is internally we don't know that. So there's no way to know. And I think people will contest the Jewish homeland no matter what we do. I think that's the answer.
Yeah, in this stage of the world, for sure.
Yeah. But what would happen internally within the Jewish people? Laws of purity, impurity, what would be the financial structure? How would that work if people are going to serve in the temple? You have to be dedicated to serving in the temple.
Yeah.
So you need to live off of something. Who would finance that? How would that work? There's a whole system in place in the Torah. Would we reenact that system? Would it be simply a charitable organization or a charitable organization like FIFA? So that's the
you don't want
non-for-profit.
You
don't want that. You don't want that. But the question, is it going to use the money roller? So you know that one of the most wealthiest charitable organizations today is Keren LaMorashet HaKotel. Keren LaMorashet HaKotel literally has millions of dollars a year that it rolls out, and it pays it out, and it brings in schools, and does a lot of good things with the money. But they have a huge payroll and a huge budget. Yeah. There's a rabbi of the Kotel. He was paid pretty well. And, I mean, it's a huge... I know that because they were my competitors from Migdal David. They were able to sponsor buses for these schools. They paid for the bus for the schools to come in because they had money to burn that they had to burn by 2 million shekels. You have to burn by the end of the year. And then schools came to me and said, can you sponsor our bus? I'm like, no, you have to get here. You have a school trip. We don't pay for you. We charge you. We're charging you 50% instead of 10. We're charging you 10 shekels a kid. Yeah. And they're like, oh, but they charge us nothing and they pay for our bus. I'm like, I can't compete with this. No, you can't. I can't. They have so much money. It's unbelievable. So the question is, how that would work. Would it be a government-funded thing? It's an interesting question. And getting into Trumot HaMa'asot, the financial structure, and the level of purity and impurity, how would that affect everybody's life? The hyper-focus on purity would return. We don't have that today. It's a really interesting question.
We'll visit that next week.
So
the question to you guys, the audience, for today is, do you think that the world would recognize Israel as the Jewish homeland, specifically because the temple will be built in assuming tomorrow. Okay, thank you for listening to Everything Under the Sun. We will see you next week. You'll hear from us, argue with us, we'll love that, and we'll see you soon.